The wind cut across my face like a blade the moment the front door slammed behind me. Christmas Eve should have smelled like pine needles and cinnamon, but all I could taste was the metallic sting of winter as I stumbled down the frozen marble steps with my single suitcase banging against my shin. Behind me, the lights of my parents' mansion glowed warm and golden, a scene from a postcard. If you didn't know they'd just thrown their eldest daughter out like trash they no longer wanted. My little sister Chloe leaned against the doorframe in her red velvet dress, arms folded, lips curled in a smirk that could slice skin. "Let's see you survive now," she purred, voice dripping with amusement. "Merry Christmas, sis." The door shut before I could even draw breath to answer. Snow crunched under my boots as I reached the sidewalk, the cold sinking through my coat like it was nothing more than thin paper. My fingers throbbed, my lungs burned, my dignity cracked in the freezing air. Every breath came out as a tremor. I tried to swallow the humiliation, but it sat thick in my throat, refusing to go down. I kept walking because stopping meant collapsing, and collapsing meant breaking apart on the pavement where no one would ever bother to pick up the pieces. And then, just as my knees threatened to buckle, I saw her, a woman curled on a bus bench beneath a flickering street lamp, barefoot, trembling, skin blued by the cold. Her hair hung in silver strands across her face. She looked so fragile I thought the wind might blow her apart. Something inside me shifted, overriding everything. Fear, fury, grief. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. I stepped forward, pulled off my winter boots, and placed them gently onto her frostbitten feet. She looked up at me with eyes like broken glass catching the light. "Kindness like yours," she whispered, "is rarer than diamonds." 2 hours later, 30 black Porsches rolled into our neighborhood in perfect formation, engines humming like a quiet threat. The same woman stepped out of the middle car, no longer frail, no longer freezing. She was immaculate, powerful, impossible. And her eyes held mine as she spoke a single sentence that changed everything. I should have run. But I stayed. Hours before that moment. Before the boots, before the Porsches, before the woman who would unravel every truth I'd ever believed. I'd been sitting in my tiny office cubicle at Sullivan & Raines, staring at an email I'd pretended for 10 full minutes wasn't real. "Dear Ms. Alden, due to restructuring." Restructuring. The corporate euphemism for, "You're done here, good luck surviving the wreckage." I closed my laptop with numb fingers, packed the dying plant that had survived 3 layoffs already, and walked to my 12-year-old car in a fog so thick it felt like cotton stuffed inside my skull. 6 years at the firm, 6 years of clawing for recognition that never came. And now I was driving home to parents who hadn't called me in months, and a sister who kept going viral for unboxing luxury handbags she didn't pay for. Traffic crawled, raindrops froze on my windshield. I kept rehearsing what I'd say when I arrived. "I just need a few days. I'm between jobs. I'm okay." But all of it tasted like failure. When I finally turned onto our street in River's Edge, the mansion glowed like a holiday catalog fantasy. Tall windows dripping with warm light. A massive tree twinkling through the foyer glass. Caterers unloading silver trays. And inside, my family. My mother spotted me first. Margaret Alden, wrapped in pearls and precision, adjusting the orchids lining the hallway as though they were props on a stage. My father, crisp navy blazer, gold cufflinks, swirling a glass of Merlot like an award he'd earned. And Chloe, beautiful, cruel Chloe, twirling in a backless red dress, flashing a ring so big the chandelier reflected off it. Their laughter died the second I stepped inside. "Bad day at work," I managed, forcing a brittle smile. Chloe snorted, loud. "Another one? Wow, sis, this makes what? 4th job in 4 years?" She glanced theatrically at my mother. "Remember when she got fired from that tech startup because she couldn't keep up?" My cheeks flamed. It was a company-wide layoff. My father finally set down his wine. "We need to talk, Serena." No hello, no hug, no welcome home. He led me to the study without asking if I wanted to sit. He never asked when the news was bad. "I've updated the family trust," he said simply. "Your sister is the sole beneficiary now." The words sliced through me like ice. "What?" I whispered. "All of it? You're cutting me out?" "You're 32, he said. "It's time you learned to stand on your own." My mother looked anywhere but at me. I felt something inside me fold. "So this is punishment," I said, "for losing my job?" "This isn't punishment," he replied, cold as the winter air outside. "It's responsibility." Chloe's phone turned toward us. She was filming. "This is gold," she whispered. "Say something, Rena. My followers love drama." "Stop," I snapped. "Just stop." But it was already too late. My father nodded to the house manager. 20 minutes. Pack what you need." The world tilted. "Dad," I said, voice breaking. "It's Christmas Eve." He didn't even flinch. "We all make choices." 20 minutes later, the same man who taught me to ride a bike was opening the door to throw me out into 20-degree weather with a single suitcase and a coat that was barely warm enough to survive a short walk, let alone a night. When the door closed behind me, soft, final, expensive, I heard the alarm beep, armed. I was no longer a daughter. I was a trespasser. I wandered through the quiet streets of our gated neighborhood, dragging my suitcase across perfect sidewalks that had never belonged to me, past houses filled with people who mattered more than I ever would to the people who raised me. The cold cut deeper each block. My fingers stiffened, my eyes blurred. By the time I reached the small public park near Trinity Church, I could barely feel my toes. The bench beneath the street lamp was dusted with snow, as if someone had shaken powdered sugar across it. I sat, finally let the weight collapse me forward, finally let the tears spill, hot at first, then freezing on my cheeks. I cried for every birthday Chloe overshadowed, for every achievement dismissed as not enough. For every time I'd begged silently for my parents to see me, they never had. And maybe they never would. The wind bit harder. I curled in on myself, shivering uncontrollably. The boots I wore were warm, but the cold sank through everything. My coat, my bones, my hope. Then I heard it. A soft scraping. Feet dragging. I looked up. She emerged from the fog like a forgotten ghost. Barefoot, trembling, silver hair whipping in the wind. Her feet were mottled with purple and blue. Her breath came out in ragged gasps. "Ma'am," she whispered, her voice cracking, "do you know if the shelters still have room? I've been walking for hours." I stared at her ruined feet, at her thin, shaking arms, at the way she tried to stand straighter, as if dignity alone could keep her warm. Something inside me cracked open. I didn't think, didn't question, didn't weigh consequences. I stood, knelt before her, and untied my boots, my last protection against the cold, and slid them onto her frozen feet. She gasped softly, tears gathering in the corners of her pale blue eyes. Her hands covered mine, thin and trembling. "What's your name?" she whispered. "Serena," I said, voice breaking. She repeated it like a blessing. "Thank you, Serena." Then she stood, steadier now, and walked away into the fog. I never expected to see her again. But 2 hours later, surrounded by 30 gleaming black Porsches lined in perfect synchronicity, I saw her step out. No longer barefoot, no longer trembling, no longer fragile, wrapped in power, in wealth, in certainty. She looked at me the way no one ever had, like she already knew who I was. And the words she spoke, just one sentence, would unravel everything I thought I understood about fate, family, and the price of kindness. Before we continue, tell me, have you ever been pushed out, underestimated, or replaced by the very people who should have protected you? Share your story below. Hit like if Serena's journey is resonating with you so far, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapters of this long, emotional revenge story. Your voice matters here. I found myself waking before the alarm, long before dawn touched the windows of the guest suite. For a moment I didn't know where I was. The sheets were warm, impossibly soft, nothing like the motel blanket I'd shivered under just the night before. Then the quiet settled in, a different kind of quiet. Thick, insulated, belonging to a house too large to notice a single woman breathing inside it. Rowan Estate, safety, or something that resembled it. The thought alone made my stomach tighten. I pushed back the comforter and sat up slowly, startled by how rested I felt after days of exhaustion. The faint scent of cedar drifted from somewhere, and a low hum, maybe central heating, made the air warm even though frost coated the glass. My suitcase sat neatly beside the wardrobe where someone must have placed it after I fell asleep. I'd been too tired to think, too overwhelmed to process that I was inside the home of the same woman I had given my boots to only hours earlier. And then I heard it. Voices just outside the door, hushed but urgent. One male, one female. "Did she see the report?" the man whispered. "Not yet," the woman replied. "Maeve wants to introduce things slowly." A pause, a sigh. "We don't know if she's the right one." My breath caught. Footsteps moved farther down the hall until silence crept back in. I stood there, hands trembling at my sides. The right one for what? Why was anyone discussing reports involving me? I swallowed hard and pushed the question down for later. Fear could wait. Survival couldn't. By the time I reached the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. My cheeks were still drained from the cold. My hair was matted and wild. My eyes, swollen from crying under a street lamp, looked older than my 32 years. I let the water run over my hands, warm enough to sting my fingertips awake, then splashed it on my face until I felt real again. Present. A person, not a ghost wandering someone else's mansion. A soft knock broke the stillness. "Miss Alden?" a calm voice called. "Breakfast is being served. Mrs. Rowan would like to see you." I opened the door to find an elderly man in a charcoal vest and white gloves, posture straight as a soldier. His name tag, Clarence. "I can show you the way if you'd like," he said with a gentle smile. I nodded, following him into a wide hallway lined with paintings, oil portraits of people I didn't know, landscapes with foggy lakes and mountains that seemed impossibly tall. Everything felt curated to reflect a life lived with intention, not excess. "This home was built in 1931, Clarence said, noticing my gaze roam across the frames. "Mrs. Rowan has worked hard to preserve its history." I wanted to ask the questions already spinning in my head. Why had she brought me here? What did she want from me? But my throat refused to cooperate. I simply walked, listening to the click of Clarence's polished shoes echo off marble floors. When we reached the breakfast solarium, sunlight pooled across the table set for two. And there she was, Maeve Rowan, elegant in a cream turtleneck and tailored trousers, hair pulled back in a low knot. No trace of the trembling barefoot woman I'd wrapped in my coat. She looked warm, powerful, composed. "Good morning, Serena," she said with a softness that still managed to command the entire room. "Please, sit." I lowered myself into the chair across from her, trying to ignore how out of place I felt among the porcelain, china, and silver cutlery. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "Yes," I said honestly. "Better than I expected." She smiled faintly. "People often sleep well in this house. Something about knowing they're safe." Safe. That word made my chest tighten. I didn't know how to accept it, not after being thrown out of my parents' house like I was nothing. Maeve folded her hands, eyes studying me in a way that wasn't intrusive but strangely grounding. "I'd like to know who you are, Serena. Not what your family decided about you. Not what the world thinks. Just you." I hesitated, fingers knotted together under the table. "I'm not sure I even know who that is anymore." "Then start with what you do know." I exhaled slowly. "I worked in marketing. 6 years. I tried really hard to prove myself, but the layoffs kept coming. My parents think I should have been more successful by now. They've always thought that." "And how does that make you feel?" she asked, pouring tea into delicate cups. How did it make me feel? Like swallowing broken glass. Like I'd been running uphill for years, only to be told the finish line had moved again. It makes me feel like everything I accomplish is never enough, I admitted. Like I'm always one step behind my sister. Like there's something wrong with me I can't fix. Maeve looked at me with a sympathy that reached deeper than pity. Sometimes families confuse love with expectation, and expectation with control. Her words sank in, warm and painful at the same time. After breakfast, she rose gracefully. There's something I'd like you to see. Clarence guided us to the library, a cavernous room lined with books that climbed 2 stories high, reached only by golden rolling ladders. Sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, painting the floor in soft blues and greens. Maeve walked toward a glass display case at the center of the room. Inside was a leather-bound folder. This, she said, is the beginning of your evaluation. My evaluation? My voice cracked slightly. She nodded. If you choose to stay, I will offer you a 6-month apprenticeship within my foundation. I blinked. Why me? You don't even know me. I know what I saw, she said simply. A woman with nothing left, who still chose kindness over fear. Kindness without an audience. That's rare. My cheeks warmed. I didn't know how to respond, so I stayed quiet. This program is rigorous, she continued. Leadership training, project management, financial ethics, community site work. You will be challenged, tested, sometimes pushed to limits you didn't know existed. Are you sure I'm qualified? No, she said, smiling softly. And that's the point. Potential often hides in people who think they lack it. For a moment I felt something flicker inside me. Hope, maybe, or the faintest belief that I wasn't a complete disappointment. Maeve handed me the leather folder. It felt heavy, a weight far beyond paper. We'll begin tomorrow, she said, turning toward the large window overlooking the lake. Today, Clarence will show you around the estate. Consider it your first assignment. Clarence nodded and motioned for me to follow him into another corridor. This part of the house was quieter, with industrial carpeting instead of marble. Everything smelled faintly of dust and cedar. This is the archive wing, he explained, stopping before a steel door secured with a biometric lock. The Foundation stores historical records here, legal documents, project history, board communications. Strictly restricted. But something on the door caught my eye. Engraved plates listing authorized personnel. Maeve Rowan, Jordan Hale, and then one more name, Harold D. Alden. My pulse spiked. My father? How could he have had access to a place like this? And why? Clarence continued walking, unaware that my thoughts had splintered in a dozen directions. I forced my feet to follow, but my mind stayed behind with that silver plaque reflecting my father's name like a ghost. We passed through a hallway of framed photographs, past charity events, construction sites, smiling families holding keys to new homes. The kind of work that genuinely changed lives. Work I had never been trusted with. Work my family had never cared about. Clarence gestured toward a smaller building outside, a path of brick leading through winter-barren rose gardens. This is where staff training takes place. Inside, the atmosphere shifted again, less formal, more modern. A cluster of employees had gathered, speaking hurriedly over files spread across a table. These are the strategy analysts, Clarence explained cautiously. They're working through a disagreement on funding allocations. A brunette woman looked up. Clarence, thank God, we need another opinion. Before he could protest, she locked eyes with me. Or maybe she can help. Oh, no, I'm not, I started, but she pushed a file into my hands. Mason thinks we should fast-track the shelter funding, she said. I think there's risk of misuse. What do you see? I scanned the documents, heart pounding, numbers blurred together. I didn't know these people. I didn't know their systems. But I did know one thing. Rushing decisions was dangerous. Why is the timeline so urgent? I asked. Mason crossed his arms. Winter storm approaching. They'll need resources. And what about oversight? I countered gently. Are you comfortable releasing funds without reviewing vendor history? He hesitated. The brunette smirked. Exactly what I said. Clarence cleared his throat. Mrs. Rowan wanted her to observe, not intervene. But the room had shifted. People were watching me differently, as if surprised someone like me, someone barely holding her life together, could speak with logic. I handed the files back. I just think both urgency and accountability matter. That's all. As we left, I could still feel their eyes following me. Outside, cold wind swept across my face. I pulled my coat tighter, my new coat, not the one I'd given away, and inhaled slowly. You handled that well, Clarence said. I wasn't trying to. My mouth just moved. That's usually when truth slips out. When we re-entered the estate, a chill ran down my spine. Someone had left an envelope on the table outside my bedroom door. Plain, unmarked. I picked it up, heart pounding, and slipped a finger beneath the flap. Inside was a single photo. Me, maybe 8 years old, standing in front of a construction site sign that read, Alden Heritage Homes. Written across the bottom, in slanted handwriting, you were never supposed to know. My breath froze. The hallway seemed to tilt. I whipped around, but no one stood there. Just shadows stretching across the walls. Somewhere deeper in the house, a door clicked shut. And for the first time since arriving at Rowan Estate, I realized I wasn't just being helped. I was being watched. The first thing I noticed when I woke was the silence. Not the uneasy silence of a motel at dawn, or the suffocating silence of my parents' house. This was different. This silence felt intentional, curated, the kind that settles over a place where people expect to be obeyed, the kind that hides secrets in its walls. For a moment I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to forget the envelope from last night. The photo. The message. My 8-year-old self standing in front of Alden Heritage Homes like some ghost trapped in a truth I wasn't meant to uncover. I pushed the memory down, reminding myself today was my first real day inside Rowan Estate, and I would need all the composure I could muster. The scent of brewed coffee drifted under the door. I pulled myself out of bed, dressed quickly, and tried to smooth the nerves fluttering beneath my ribcage. This place wasn't home, not yet, not ever, but it was the first place in a long time where I wasn't immediately punished for existing. A knock sounded. Miss Alden, Clarence called. Mrs. Rowan is waiting in the east breakfast room. I opened the door and followed him into the hallway, trying not to stare at every oil portrait and carved archway we passed. The house had a way of making a person aware of their own smallness. Every echo of our footsteps reminded me I was a guest, not a resident. Maeve was already seated when I arrived, sunlight from the tall windows laying delicate stripes across the tablecloth. She looked peaceful, reading something printed on thick cream paper. "Good morning, Serena," she said, lifting her gaze with a smile. "Did you rest?" "After some effort," I replied honestly. Her expression softened. "This house can be overwhelming when you're not used to it." Overwhelming wasn't the word I would have chosen, but I didn't correct her. She gestured toward the chair across from her, and I sat, finding comfort in the warmth from a cup of jasmine tea someone had placed beside my plate. "We'll begin your orientation today," she said. "But first, tell me how you're feeling." Feeling. That word again. People like my parents never cared how I felt. They only cared how I reflected on them. "I'm processing," I said, "trying to understand why I'm here." Maeve regarded me for a long breath. "You're here because I saw truth in you, the kind of truth that appears only when no one is watching." I shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to do with the praise. She took a sip of tea. "After breakfast, I'd like to walk you through what your next 6 months could look like." "Could?" I echoed. "Yes, nothing here is forced. This is an invitation, not a command." That alone made my throat tighten. How different it felt to be offered a choice. When we finished, she led me through a corridor lined with stained glass windows and into the estate's grand library. My breath caught for a second. Books stretched upward across 2 floors, ladders on rails, sunlight making soft patterns of ruby and sapphire across the hardwood. "This," she said, "is where most apprentices spend their first week, learning history, understanding context, knowing what came before them." I walked slowly past the tables and shelves, fingertips grazing the polished wood. "What am I apprenticing for?" I finally asked. Maeve smiled faintly. "Leadership within the Rowan Foundation. And perhaps something more, if you're willing to earn it." The idea of leadership, a word I'd never associated with myself, felt too large to hold. Before I could respond, someone entered from the other side of the room. Jordan Hale. I recognized her immediately from the night before, a tall, sharp-featured woman with a posture so perfect it bordered on intimidating. She wore a charcoal blazer and held a digital tablet like it was a weapon. "Jordan will guide you through your initial steps," Maeve said. "Try not to be frightened. She appears severe, but only when awake." Jordan did not smile at the joke. Instead, she studied me with cool assessment, as though she were scanning for weaknesses. "Good to meet you, Miss Alden," she said. "Please sign these." She handed me a stack of documents, confidentiality agreements, residency rules, privacy clauses, and something labeled ethical compliance for apprenticeship candidates. The stack felt heavier than it looked. "What exactly am I agreeing to?" I asked. Jordan's eyebrow lifted. "To behave with integrity and judgment. Characteristics, Mrs. Rowan believes you possess." It was subtle, but I heard the doubt beneath her tone. I signed my name at the bottom of every page. My signature looked smaller than usual. "Follow me," Jordan said, turning pivot sharp on her heel. We passed through a quieter wing of the house, where modern glass panels replaced older architecture. The air smelled faintly of stone and winter berries. Jordan tapped her badge against a security panel, and a door unlocked with a soft hiss. "This," she said, stepping aside, "is the strategy room." Inside, a long table stretched across the center, walls covered in digital screens displaying charts, maps, and timelines. 2 analysts were already mid-argument. "I'm telling you," one said, jabbing at a spreadsheet, "if we allocate more to the Northern District now, we'll risk shortfall by spring." The other shook her head. "And if we delay emergency funding, the shelters won't make it through the storm. We can't gamble on hypothetical deficits." Their voices snapped through the room like breaking glass. Jordan placed a hand on my shoulder and gently nudged me forward. "Observe." I stood quietly, absorbing the tension. The disagreement reminded me of board meetings I'd once pitched in, though those had been about ad budgets and brand campaigns, not about lives. One of the analysts finally noticed me. "Oh, are you the new candidate?" "I guess so," I said. "Then weigh in," she said, pointing toward the screen. "What's the priority, risk mitigation or immediate relief?" The sudden pressure made every nerve light up. I swallowed, stepping closer to the data. "Why is the Northern District overspending?" I asked. "Vendor instability," the first analyst said. "And the shelters?" "Haven't received winter aid yet." I exhaled slowly. Then maybe the question isn't which crisis to prioritize, but how to prevent tomorrow's crisis while responding to today's. Both analysts blinked. Jordan's eyes snapped toward me, surprised but not displeased. "Go on," said the second analyst. "If you release half the emergency funds now," I said slowly, "and freeze the unstable vendor accounts for a 72-hour review, the shelters stay open while you reallocate. No one collapses, no one gambles. Both sides breathe." Silence rushed into the room like wind. "That actually works," the first analyst murmured. Jordan's face remained unreadable. Maeve, I thought, would have smiled. We left the strategy room with Jordan walking slightly slower than before, like she was re-evaluating me. "Not bad," she said finally. "But insight is meaningless without consistency. Was that a compliment? From Jordan, maybe. She led me down another hallway to a staircase descending into the lower level of the estate. The air grew cooler, the lights dimmer. This area houses restricted archives, she said. Only 3 of us have access. She lifted her badge again, unlocking another steel door. Beneath the fluorescent lights, row after row of metal cabinets lined the space, labeled by year. What's down here? I asked. History, she replied. Failures, successes, legal documents, mistakes we cannot afford to repeat. Mistakes. The word pulsed in my head. My father's name on the door from yesterday, the photo from the envelope. Jordan led me past a series of locked storage units before stopping in front of a sealed glass room. Through the glass, I saw a brass plaque on the far wall. Legacy Room. Authorized personnel only. And there it was again, gleaming faintly under the industrial lighting. Harold D. Alden. My breath hitched. The letters seemed to glow, mocking me, daring me to ask the question clawing at my chest. Why did my father have authorized access at the Rowan Foundation? Jordan must have noticed my posture stiffen. Something wrong? She asked. I forced my eyes away. No, just taking it all in. She studied me too long, as if she sensed a crack she couldn't yet identify. After the archives, Clarence met me outside to escort me to the training center on the east side of the property. Today, he said, would include exercises in situational reasoning, whatever that meant. Inside the modest building, I found a small cafeteria where staff were having lunch. The air smelled of roasted vegetables and rosemary bread. Several employees looked up as I entered, curiosity thick in the air. A man at the corner table spoke first. You must be the new apprentice candidate. I guess word travels fast, I said awkwardly. He chuckled. Mrs. Rowan doesn't bring just anyone in here. You've already caused quite a stir. A stir? I didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. Clarence motioned toward a table. Sit, eat. You'll need your strength. I sat with a plate of soup and bread while 2 employees continued a tense conversation nearby. I'm telling you the data projection won't hold, a woman insisted. If we approve grants before verifying the new census numbers, we risk overspending by summer. It's winter now, her colleague snapped. People need heat. They need food. We can fix the projections later. The projections determine survival. The survival is happening right now. The argument escalated until both turned to me in exasperation. What would you do? The man demanded. Since apparently you're the prodigy Mrs. Rowan plucked from the cold. Heat rushed to my cheeks. I'm not. But you have an opinion, the woman cut in gently. Don't you? I hesitated, looking between them. Something inside me, something quiet but solid, began to rise. I think, I said slowly, you're both trying to protect people, just in different ways. Maybe the solution is to pause discretionary spending until the census is verified, but release emergency aid through temporary channels. That way no one freezes while we wait for accurate data. A long silence. Then both employees nodded. That would actually work, the man admitted. The woman smiled. Looks like you'll fit in here just fine. When Clarence and I stepped outside, the cold air bit my cheeks again, but something inside me felt warmer, steadier. You have a natural gift, Clarence said. I laughed incredulously. For making guesses? For seeing what others miss, he corrected. Mrs. Rowan values that above all. Back in the main house, the hallway leading to my room was dim, the afternoon light already fading. I reached my door and froze. Another envelope lay on the floor. Plain, unmarked, like the first one. My heart thudded painfully as I picked it up and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single note, written in the same slanted handwriting as before. This isn't the last secret, Serena. I stared at the words until they blurred. Someone in this house knew more about my past than I did. Someone had been watching me from the moment I arrived, and whoever they were, they weren't finished. I barely slept. Every time my eyes closed, the handwriting from last night's note reappeared behind my eyelids. Sharp, slanted, knowing. By the time dawn seeped through the curtains, I was already sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, hands pressed against my mouth. The house was quiet, but not in a comforting way. More like it was holding its breath. When Clarence knocked at 6, I almost jumped. "Miss Alden," he said gently, "it's time to get ready. Mrs. Rowan would like to begin your assessment at 7. Assessment. The word felt heavier this morning, as if the note had added a second meaning. I dressed quickly, tying my hair back, trying to look like someone prepared to face the day instead of someone unraveling from the inside. Breakfast was simple: oatmeal with berries, tea, and the soft clink of silverware, but I barely tasted any of it. Across the table, Maeve studied me in quiet contemplation. She didn't ask if I'd slept. She didn't need to. "Today we begin," she said instead. "Only one thing is required of you: honesty with yourself." I nodded, though my stomach tightened. Honesty was something I'd never been rewarded for. In my family, honesty only created trouble. When breakfast ended, Jordan appeared at the doorway, her expression clipped and precise. She was dressed impeccably in navy, tablet tucked under her arm as if it were a shield. "Follow me," she said. Her heels clicked in even, controlled beats as she guided me through the estate. I tried to match her pace, though nerves made my steps less steady. We passed through a long corridor and stopped before a room I hadn't seen before, a long rectangular office with glass walls and a heavy conference table in the center. Inside, 2 groups of foundation staff were already seated, their faces tight with tension. "This is the moral split test," Jordan said. "Your first evaluation." "I'm sorry." "My what?" But she had already stepped aside. Maeve, who'd entered silently, motioned for me to take a seat between the 2 groups. "Listen first," she instructed. "Speak only when you understand." The air in the room was thick enough to swallow. A woman on my left leaned forward. "We need immediate approval to release funds to the Harbor Light Shelter. They've exceeded capacity. If the storm hits tonight, dozens of women will be outside." A man across from her shook his head sharply. "We can't authorize funds until financial discrepancies are cleared. They overspent last quarter. Releasing aid now could jeopardize the winter allocations." "Women will freeze," she countered. "And we'll be liable," he shot back. Their eyes snapped to me. I wanted to shrink back. I was no expert. I'd barely been allowed to make decisions for myself, let alone decisions affecting people I'd never met. But the expectation in the room pushed against me, demanding something real. "What evidence do you have of misuse?" I asked the man. He slid a paper forward. "Vendor inconsistencies, late reports, an overpayment." "And what do you need to keep people warm tonight?" I asked the woman. 20,000 in emergency aid, she said immediately. 20,000, enough to collapse a shelter, or save one. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the fear pass through me. My voice, when it came, was steadier than I felt. "Release emergency aid," I said, "but only as a temporary allocation. Freeze all non-essential spending until the discrepancies are investigated." Silence. Then, one by one, heads nodded. Maeve's eyes glimmered with something like approval. Jordan, however, remained expressionless. "The first test is complete," Jordan said. "Next." I didn't have time to let my pulse settle. Clarence appeared in the doorway, motioning me forward. "Humility rotation," he said as we walked down a back staircase leading toward the estate's kitchen. "The what?" He smiled kindly. "Leadership is built on service. Everyone starts with 2 hours here." The kitchen was alive with motion, pots steaming, knives chopping, ovens humming. A man in a white apron placed a mixing bowl in front of me before I could protest. "Whip these," he said, "and don't splatter. Last apprentice did." "I'm not an apprentice," I muttered. "Yet," he replied. But there was something grounding about working with my hands, whipping eggs, folding dough, lining plates. No pressure to impress, no family watching for missteps. Just a task, a beginning. One of the cooks, an older woman with soft eyes, paused beside me. "You're the one who was out in that storm, aren't you?" I stiffened. Yes." She nodded as if she already knew the answer. "The world can be cruel, sweetheart, but the cruelest families are the ones who swear they love you while they're breaking you." My throat tightened. "How did you—" "I've lived long enough to recognize that look," she said quietly. "The look of someone who's been told she's too much and not enough at the same time." I swallowed hard. "I don't know why I'm even here." "Because someone finally saw you," she said, "not who you were taught to be." I had to blink back tears. Before I could answer, Jordan appeared in the doorway. "Time's up," she said. "Mrs. Rowan wants her next evaluation completed." The third test took place in a small conference room. A man sat at the table, fidgeting with a stapler. He wore a worn jacket and kept clearing his throat. "This is a live simulation," Jordan said quietly. "Treat it as such." The man looked up. "You the director?" "No," I said, "but I'm here to help." I submitted my application for funding," he began. "But there are questions about my paperwork. They think I changed some numbers, but I swear I didn't mean anything wrong." I studied his face, the trembling hands, the fear he tried to hide. My father had once looked like that too, but for very different reasons. "Why did the numbers change?" I asked gently. "I copied from an older form. I thought it was the same version." His voice cracked. "Look, we house veterans, real men with nowhere else to go. If we lose our funding—" I interrupted him softly. "You're overwhelmed, and you're scared it's already too late." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I'm not here to accuse you," I said. "I'm here to fix the problem. Let's review the forms together. If there's an error, we'll correct it. But the integrity of the funding has to be protected, for you and for the people counting on you." The man's shoulders dropped in relief. Jordan's face shifted, just barely, but I saw the flicker, a glimmer of something not quite approval but not disapproval either. The moment I stepped back into the hallway, however, that softened expression vanished. "We need to talk," she said curtly. "Now." She led me into a small office overlooking the courtyard. Papers covered the desk, charts, numbers, photos of shelter openings. But Jordan wasn't looking at any of them. She was looking at me. "You impressed them today," she said, her voice clipped, "but that doesn't mean you belong here." The words stung, though I tried not to show it. "I'm not afraid of hard work," I said. "That's not the issue." Her jaw tightened. "People have come through here before with good intentions. Some failed. Some betrayed this foundation." "What are you saying?" "That we cannot afford another mistake." Her voice dropped. "Mrs. Rowan believes in you. I don't. Not yet." I inhaled sharply. "Then what do I need to do?" Her answer came with ice. "Survive the truth." Before I could ask what she meant, she motioned me away, already burying herself in paperwork again. I wandered the hallway, unsettled. Questions churned inside me, about the evaluation, about why I was being tested so intensely, about what truth Jordan believed would break me. As I approached the archive corridor, a draft of cold air brushed past my ankles. The door to the legacy room, where my father's name had been engraved, was slightly ajar. My pulse quickened. I stepped closer, just enough to peer inside. Rows of boxes sat neatly on metal shelves. Some were labeled with project names, others with years. Then I saw one box near the back. Alden Investigation, Pending. My breath hitched. Slowly, carefully, I reached for the door. A hand appeared suddenly, slamming it shut. I jumped back, heart racing. Jordan stood there, face carved from stone. "This room is off limits," she said sharply. "You do not have clearance." I wasn't going in, You just what?" she cut in. "Wandering into confidential areas? That's how trust breaks, Miss Alden, quickly." I stepped back, ashamed and angry and confused all at once. Jordan locked the door with her badge, then turned toward me, her voice low enough to sting. You're here to be evaluated, not to uncover ghosts." She strode away before I could respond. By the time I returned to my room, shadows were pooling along the baseboards. The estate, once warm, seemed colder. Too many locked rooms, too many whispered conversations. Something lay on the floor near my door. Another envelope. My stomach dropped. Hands shaking, I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single page, no photo this time, just one sentence. "He didn't tell you the truth about that night." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Which night? What truth? And who inside this mansion wanted me to know? The hallway around me stayed silent. Too silent. As if someone had already slipped back into the shadows, watching to see what I'd do next. The note lay on my lap long after the sun had risen, its single sentence carving a hollow into my chest. "He didn't tell you the truth about that night." I kept reading it, hoping the meaning would shift, soften, reveal itself. It never did. Instead, it felt heavier with every breath, as though someone had slipped a stone behind my ribs. By the time I left my room, the estate was already awake. Staff moved quietly along the hallway, carts of linens rolling, murmured conversations drifting from distant corners. Nothing looked unusual, and yet everything felt altered. Like the house itself knew something I didn't. I found Maeve in the small east study, standing beside a window where pale morning light filtered through sheer curtains. She was turning pages in a leather-bound folder, her face unreadable. "Serena," she said, not looking up. "Come in." My hands tightened around the note, the edges bending. She noticed immediately when she finally lifted her gaze. "What's troubling you?" I hesitated. Trust was fragile here, not given freely, but required for survival. I stepped closer and placed the note on the desk between us. "I found this last night," I said. "Someone left it outside my room." Maeve picked up the paper delicately, reading the words once, twice. Something flickered across her expression, brief, but unmistakable. Recognition. "I don't know what this means," I whispered. "But I need to." She folded the note and set it aside. "There are truths," she said softly, "that arrive when a person is finally strong enough to survive them." I swallowed. And am I strong enough now? That is what today will reveal. With a motion of her hand, she guided me toward the private elevator that led to the third floor, the one she rarely used. The ride was silent but weighted with anticipation. When the doors opened, we stepped into a narrow hallway bathed in warm lamplight. At the end stood a small door painted in forest green. Maeve handed me a key, a simple brass key worn at the edges. "Your past intersects with the Foundation's history more than you know," she said. "Open the room, begin there." My pulse pounded as I slid the key into the lock. The door opened with a soft click. Inside was a compact archive room, nothing like the steel vaults downstairs. This one felt personal, almost intimate. Wooden shelves lined the walls. Boxes labeled by year sat stacked neatly, most dated between 1997 and 2005. Maeve stayed in the doorway, letting me step forward alone. I reached for the first box marked Alden Heritage Homes. Grant Cycle Review. The familiar name sent a tremor down my spine. My father's company. The company that had been unraveling long before anyone admitted it. Inside were project assessments, invoices, and a printed email exchange between the Foundation and Alden Heritage. I scanned the pages, heart thudding. Vendor discrepancies, delays, missing receipts, and then the phrase that froze me. Funds discrepancy under investigation. My father's signature was on every page. "He told the Foundation everything was accounted for," I said quietly, more to myself than to Maeve. "Your father wanted success," she replied, "but not accountability." I set the papers aside and reached for the next folder. The label read, Site Audit, Fall 2004. My hands trembled as I opened it. A photo slipped out, grainy but unmistakable. Me, a small version of me, standing in front of a half-built housing unit with a clipboard in my hand. My hair in two uneven pigtails. wearing a too large construction vest like it was a costume. A note in the corner read, "Child present during audit. Unusual circumstance." My breath caught. "I don't remember this." "You were 8, Maeve said. "Memories blur, or sometimes they're buried." "Why was I there?" I whispered. "Keep reading." The audit summary mentioned incomplete documentation, missing receipts, and unresolved concerns regarding record alteration. Attached was a brief narrative from the auditor, a woman named Laura Keating. I scanned the lines, each one tightening something inside my throat. Meeting terminated by Mr. Alden, raised voice, child present, mother distressed. Potential risk of exposure, altered ledgers, risk of exposure. I pressed my fingers to my temples. A faint memory flashed, shouting, my mother pulling me away from a doorway, my father's voice thundering, "She doesn't understand anything she saw." And then darkness. My mind refusing to show me the rest. "What did he alter?" I whispered. "Funding documents," Maeve said softly. "Numbers, signatures, anything that made the project look cleaner than it was. He committed fraud." "Yes." "And he blamed me?" Maeve's silence was the answer. I stared at the walls of the archive room, feeling something inside me shatter, not violently but like thin glass cracking slowly. I reached for the next document, a letter from my mother. Unlike the version I'd seen downstairs, this one wasn't incomplete. It wasn't torn. "Dear Mrs. Rowan, I am afraid for my daughters. Harold is making choices I cannot stop. Please understand that if you ever question him, I will not be able to protect the truth. Or myself." My eyes blurred. I clutched the letter like it was the last piece of her I had. "She knew," I murmured. "She knew what he was doing." "She tried to intervene," Maeve said, "more than once." "Then why didn't she say anything?" "Fear," she replied simply. "Fear of losing you. Fear of losing Chloe. Fear of losing the roof above her head." I closed my eyes, letting the truth settle over me like ash. When I opened them again, Maeve was watching me with a softness that made my chest ache. "There is more," she said gently. She pointed toward a slim folder at the bottom of the shelf. "Alden Heritage Homes, Internal Notes, 2004. Inside I found handwritten notes from my father. The handwriting was familiar. Sharp, heavy strokes, the pen pressed too hard into the page. One line was circled. "Keep Serena away. She talks too much." My knees weakened. I had to grip the edge of the shelf to steady myself. "He used me," I whispered. "He used me to hide what he was doing." "He feared that the wrong person would ask you the right question," Maeve said. "Children often notice things adults overlook." Everything inside me constricted, memories snapping into focus with cruel clarity. The night he yelled at me for entering his office, the day he slammed a drawer shut when I asked about the papers inside, the way he always said, "You're too curious for your own good." I breathed through the tightness, but the room felt smaller now, like the truth had filled every available space. "Why are you showing me this?" I managed. "Because you asked," Maeve said, "and because healing requires truth, not illusion." I pressed a shaking hand to my face. "I don't know how to feel." "You're not supposed to know," she said gently. "Feelings come after understanding, and you're still understanding." She stepped aside, giving me space to leave the archive room. My legs felt unsteady, but I forced them to move. Every step felt like walking through the aftermath of a storm I didn't know I'd survived. When we reached the staircase, I turned to her. "What happens now?" "That depends on you," she said. "You can choose to go further, or you can choose to stop. And what would you choose?" She gave me a small, sad smile. "The truth never becomes less true by avoiding it." I nodded, unable to trust my own voice. Hours later, when I finally returned to my room, I barely had time to close the door before I saw her, Chloe, sitting in the armchair beside my bed. Her mascara was smeared, hair tangled, clothes wrinkled as though she'd been crying for hours. She rose slowly when she saw me. "Serena," she whispered, We need to talk." My breath halted. "I wasn't the only one Dad was afraid of," she said, voice cracking. Just like that, the floor beneath me seemed to tilt again. Another secret. Another night. Another truth waiting to unravel everything. Chloe stood when I entered, her whole body trembling as though she'd been holding herself together only by force of will. The last time I'd seen her, she'd been smirking behind her phone while I dragged a suitcase across frozen marble. Now she looked small, stripped of everything sharp. Her eyes were swollen, her cheeks blotchy, her posture unsure, like she wasn't certain I wouldn't tell her to get out. "How did you even get in here?" I asked quietly. She rubbed her hands together, gaze flicking toward the door as if expecting someone to chase her. I told security I was your sister. They called Jordan. She let me through." Her voice cracked. I think she already knew I was coming. That didn't ease the tension in my chest. If anything, it made my pulse climb higher. Jordan let her in? Why? Chloe stepped closer, but not close enough to reach me. "Serena, things are worse than you think." I crossed my arms to steady myself. "Worse in what way?" She swallowed hard, mascara gathering beneath her lashes. "Dad's being investigated by the feds, not just for the old stuff, for new things, big things. People are talking, lawyers, reporters." Tears welled. "And he's blaming you." My breath hitched. "Me?" "He says someone inside the foundation reopened the old investigation," she said shakily. "He thinks it was you. He thinks you want revenge." "I didn't reopen anything," I said, hearing the disbelief in my own voice. "I'm just trying to understand what happened." Chloe shook her head, taking another hesitant step. "Serena, he's falling apart, and Mom can barely sleep. I've never seen her like this." Her voice cracked, and suddenly she was crying in earnest. My instinct was to reach out, but years of her taunts pressed down like a warning. I stayed where I was. "What do you want from me?" I asked softly. Chloe wiped at her cheeks, leaving streaks on her skin. "I want to explain. About that night, and about what Dad told people, about you." Something cold settled at the base of my spine. "What did he tell them?" "That you were unstable," she whispered. "That you made up stories to get attention. That you caused trouble at the construction sites as a kid." She covered her mouth with her hand. "He even told Mom once that you stole documents from his office. That you," her voice broke, "that you ruined everything." A hollow opened inside me. I was 8. I couldn't ruin anything. "I know," she whispered, "but he needed someone to blame." I stared at her, the truth cutting deeper than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. My father hadn't just failed me. He'd made me the scapegoat for his crimes. The child he was supposed to protect became the shield he hid behind. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. Chloe's shoulders sagged. "Because I'm scared. Everything is falling apart. And Dad keeps saying he can fix it if I get you to help." The air shifted. There it was. The motive behind her tears. "You want me to intervene," I said. She nodded weakly. "Please, Serena, talk to Mrs. Rowan. Ask her to stop the investigation. Or help Dad pay the penalties. You're in her inner circle now. She listens to you." A sharp ache bloomed in my chest. "Chloe, I can't undo federal law." "But you can talk to her," she insisted. "You can make her see that Dad isn't a bad person. He just made mistakes." "Big mistakes," I said quietly. "Deliberate mistakes." Chloe flinched. "You don't understand how much pressure he was under." "Pressure doesn't excuse fraud," I replied. Her eyes widened and her tone hardened. "Are you enjoying this, watching us fall apart? Is this payback for Christmas Eve?" My jaw clenched. "This isn't about payback. It's about the truth." She threw up her hands. "Truth doesn't matter when your family is losing everything." I took a step back, not from fear but from clarity. She wasn't here for healing. She was here because she was drowning, and she wanted to pull me in with her. I forced myself to stay calm. "I'm sorry you're scared, but I won't obstruct justice." Her mouth fell open. "So you're choosing her? This old woman you met one day over your own blood?" "I'm choosing integrity," I said softly. "Something Dad didn't choose." Chloe's face twisted. "You think you're better than us now, just because she took pity on you." "I don't think I'm better," I said, voice steady. "I'm just done being blamed for things that weren't my fault." Something in her expression snapped. Her sadness calcified into something sharp. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You think she's rescuing you? She's using you, just like everyone else, just like Dad said." "That's not true. You don't know what she's capable of." Her voice trembled with something darker than fear. Panic. Desperation. I stepped toward her. "Chloe, who told you anything about my assessment? Or about the investigation?" She froze. A flicker of guilt crossed her face. "Dad," she whispered. "Dad has someone feeding him information." My stomach dropped. "Someone in this house?" "I don't know," she said quickly. "He never told me who, just that he knew things before they happened." A chill crept across my skin. Someone here was giving my father updates. Jordan, Clarence, a staff member, or someone higher. Before I could process it, a voice came from behind us. "That's enough." We both turned. Maeve stood in the doorway, composed but radiating a quiet authority that filled the room with silence. Chloe stiffened. "Mrs. Rowan, I didn't mean to intrude." "But you did," Maeve said calmly. "And not for the reason you claimed." Chloe's eyes darted to me, then to the floor. "You didn't come to apologize," Maeve continued. "You came to manipulate your sister into shielding your father from consequences." Chloe bristled. "You don't know anything about us." "I know emotional coercion when I see it." Maeve stepped further inside. "And I know a young woman who has not once taken responsibility for her own actions." Tears spilled down Chloe's cheeks again. "This isn't fair. I'm trying." "No," Maeve said gently but firmly. "You are pleading, not changing." Chloe's breath hitched, and for a moment she looked like a child lost in a storm. "You think I'm the problem," she whispered. "But Dad did what he did for us." "No," Maeve said softly. "He did it to protect his ego, not his family." Chloe flinched as though struck. Maeve approached her slowly. "I am sorry for what you've gone through, but I will not allow you to drag Serena back into the damage your father created." Chloe looked at me, voice cracking. "Please, don't abandon us." I stepped closer, my own voice breaking. "I'm not abandoning you, Chloe. But I'm not saving anyone who refuses to save themselves." Her lips trembled. "I don't know how." "That's the first true thing you've said," Maeve murmured. For a moment, the room held all three of us. Hurt, fear, truth, and something fragile that might one day become forgiveness. But Chloe wasn't ready. Not yet. Tears streaming, she brushed past me and rushed toward the door. Before she stepped out, she turned back one last time. "You're changing," she said bitterly, "and you're leaving us behind." I swallowed hard. "I'm choosing myself, Chloe, for the first time." She shook her head, wiped her face, and disappeared down the hallway. I exhaled shakily. Maeve reached out, resting a hand lightly on my arm. "Are you all right?" I nodded, though the truth was tangled inside me. "She's scared. They all are." "And fear makes people dangerous," Maeve said softly, "especially when they believe lies for too long." My eyes drifted to the window, where winter light washed the garden in pale silver. "Do you think she meant it?" I asked. "When she said Dad has someone inside this house giving him information?" Maeve's expression tightened. "I think it's possible, which means we must be careful." A chill ran down my spine. "Come," Maeve said. "There's more for you to learn today." But as we walked toward the elevator, I couldn't shake the feeling that Chloe's visit hadn't been a reunion. It had been a warning. And whoever was feeding my father information. They were still inside Rowan Estate, watching, waiting, and closer than I ever imagined. The tablet shook in my hands before I even understood what I was looking at. A frozen frame of my own face, me standing at the gates of Rowan Estate, caught mid-blink, mid-breath, mid-nothing, sat beneath a bold, screaming title, "My sister sold her family for money." The video had already passed 300,000 views, and climbing. I stared, unable to move, as the progress bar crept forward. Then Chloe's voice burst through the speakers, trembling, soft, heartbreakingly calculated. "My sister, she left us. She chose money over family, over mom, over dad. She's letting them lose everything while she lives in a mansion." The camera shook slightly, as if she were holding it with trembling hands. "I know she's hurting," Chloe said, sniffling, "but she doesn't care who she destroys anymore." I felt the floor tilt. My breath thinned until the air tasted metallic. Jordan reached out, steadying the tablet in my hands before it slipped. "Watch all of it," she said quietly. Chloe continued, tears tracking down her cheeks as she angled the camera to reveal the outside of the estate where she had stood just an hour before meeting me. "She's changed," Melanie whispered dramatically. "This place got inside her head. They turned her against us." Then the edit cut abruptly, to me walking beside Clarence earlier that morning. She must have filmed it from behind a tree or a parked car. The angle made it look like I was ignoring him, chin high, aloof. "She won't even look at me," Chloe said. "She won't help us keep our home. She wants Dad punished." It cut again. Another stolen clip of me entering the East Wing, framed to look like secrecy, arrogance. "She doesn't care what happens to us," Chloe's voice cracked. "She wants us to fail." The comments poured in faster than the view count. "How can she abandon her own parents? Money changes people, ungrateful monster." "Hope the truth comes out." My stomach lurched. "She edited everything. She twisted, she scripted it," Jordan said flatly. "The whole thing was recorded before she saw you." I pressed my knuckles to my mouth. "But why?" "Desperation," Jordan replied. "Fear. And a lifetime of believing manipulation is easier than truth." Maeve stepped forward, taking the tablet gently from my hands and locking the screen. "Don't let your sister's panic become your burden," she murmured. "This is about her survival, not your character." But humiliation was rising like heat up my throat. "Everyone's going to think I'm a monster." "For a little while," Jordan said bluntly. "The internet reacts before it thinks." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No," she replied. "It's supposed to make you patient." But patience had never been my strength. Not when it came to my family. Not when every bruise they'd left on me felt fresh again. I moved toward the window, needing air, needing space. Outside, cameras had already gathered at the gates, local reporters, bloggers, teenagers hoping to film whatever meltdown they assumed was coming next. "They're here?" I whispered. "Of course," Jordan said. "Drama attracts crowd. Truth attracts time." I pressed my forehead to the glass. "I don't know how to fight something like this." Maeve's reflection appeared beside mine. "You don't fight it," she said softly. "You outlast it." A fresh wave of comments scrolled across the tablet Jordan now held. Poor Chloe. How can a sister be this cruel? Money must have gotten to her head. Something inside me cracked. Not in the way it had cracked on the snow-covered bench the night I lost everything. This was a deeper fracture. A realization that the people I once cried over would never cry for me. "Let the internet have its tantrum," Jordan said, placing the locked tablet on the table. "Truth has a way of resurfacing." "But how?" I asked. "No one knows me." Maeve turned to me. "Then let them learn." The rest of the morning unfolded under a haze of dread. Phones buzzed across the estate. Staff whispered. My name trended on platforms I'd never even used. Every notification felt like a slap I couldn't dodge. During lunch, 2 junior analysts walked past my table too quickly, pretending they weren't avoiding eye contact. I could feel their unease, their sympathy, their curiosity. And then something shifted. A voice called, "Is that her?" I tensed. Another, wait, someone posted a thread about her sister. A third, oh my God, look at this live stream she did on Christmas Eve. My head snapped up. A woman from the grant team approached me, tablet in hand. Serena, people found Chloe's old videos. I took the tablet. The first clip. Chloe laughing while I carried a suitcase down the steps of our parents' mansion. The caption someone else added, so this is the real villain? The next video, Chloe mocking my job losses at a Christmas party. Another clip, Chloe insulting me behind my back during a family brunch. A flood of comments followed. I feel sick watching this. She tormented her sister for years. This changes everything. Team Serena now. Shock rippled through me. I didn't post any of these, I whispered. Good, Maeve said behind me, because the truth is most powerful when you don't wield it. The momentum shifted further over the next hour. A former classmate of Chloe's posted about her bullying behavior in high school. A past employer commented that Chloe had emotionally manipulated coworkers. A minor influencer revealed that Chloe paid for fake sponsorships. Public opinion flipped like a tide turning under a full moon. Justice for Serena began trending. I felt dizzy, caught between vindication and grief. The world was suddenly defending me, but not because it knew me, because it disliked her. Was this justice, or just entertainment? Before I could answer myself, Clarence hurried into the study. There's something you both need to see, he said, breathless. We followed him to the strategy room, where a large monitor displayed a breaking news alert. Alden Heritage Homes. New documents leaked financial misconduct spanning years. Family members may have been involved. My legs nearly gave out. This isn't just online drama anymore, Jordan said. This is federal. My heart hammered. Who leaked the documents? No idea, she said. But someone wants the truth out. Fear and relief warred inside me. Exposure meant justice. Exposure meant disaster. Exposure meant the collapse of everything my parents had built on lies. Maeve touched my shoulder. This storm was coming with or without you. Emotion swelled in my chest. But my family? They'll think I did this. Because guilt breeds paranoia, Jordan said. They see betrayal everywhere because they planted it themselves. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of phone calls, security instructions, internal briefings, and relentless media coverage. Chloe posted a second video, more frantic, more desperate, claiming the foundation was brainwashing me. But this time, nobody believed her. The comments were ruthless. Girl, sit down. You're digging your own grave. Stop blaming your sister for your dad's crimes. We see you now. By sunset, sponsors had dropped Chloe. Her follower count plummeted. A gossip site ran a headline, From Influencer to Instigator, The Downfall of Chloe Alden. I shouldn't have found satisfaction in it, but I did. Small, quiet, honest. When night fell, I found myself alone on the balcony outside my room, wrapped in a shawl, watching the lights from the gate flash as reporters shouted into cameras. The cold air bit at my cheeks, but I stayed. I needed the world to feel far away for a moment. Jordan joined me, stepping onto the stone tiles with careful precision. You handled today better than most people would, she said. I didn't do anything. You didn't break, she corrected. I leaned against the railing. Is this what leadership looks like, being hated by strangers for things you didn't do? Sometimes, she said, but leadership is also choosing not to crumble when people demand that you do. The wind shifted, carrying the faint sound of chanting from beyond the gates. My name, over and over, not in anger now, in support. I never asked for this, I whispered. No one ever asks for real growth, Jordan replied. It arrives, often violently. I turned to her, surprised by the softness in her eyes. Mrs. Rowan believes in you, she said. Whether or not I do doesn't matter yet. Yet? I asked. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. We'll see. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Dad's under federal investigation. Mom is panicking. Come home, please. The sender, Chloe. A tremor passed through me. The city might have started listening to the truth, but my family was beginning to drown in it, and they weren't done pulling on me yet. I let the phone screen dim, my breath clouding the cold night air. Tomorrow would be worse. Tomorrow, I would have to face the fall of the Alden family. But tonight, I finally understood something. The truth wasn't destroying me, it was setting me free. The conference room felt colder than usual, as if someone had lowered the temperature to keep everyone sharp. Or maybe it was just me, sitting across the polished table from Maeve and Jordan while a stack of documents waited between us like a verdict nobody wanted to deliver. Jordan slid the top file toward me. Before you decide your next move, you need to see what federal investigators have compiled. My throat tightened. The cover page alone made my pulse spike. Alden Heritage Homes. Case summary, preliminary findings. I opened it with trembling fingers. As I read, the words blurred together, forming a story I already feared but had never seen written this plainly. My father had falsified vendor contracts, created shell companies, altered invoices to pocket funds intended for low-income housing, and then the dagger, systemic misappropriation sustained by internal parties. Internal parties. I forced myself to keep reading. Multiple individuals within Alden Heritage Homes and affiliated organizations participated knowingly, including key administrative staff and outside contractors. Another line, evidence suggests a deliberate pattern of behavior designed to obscure the origin of falsified documents. I looked up. Who else was involved? Jordan tapped the page with her pen. That's what investigators are determining now, but the pattern shows he didn't act alone. A tremor crawled up my spine. You think someone here helped him? Maeve's silence answered before she did. There are signs, she said softly, that someone with access to Foundation archives leaked restricted material to your father years ago. And recently. Recently? Who has access? I asked. 3 people, Jordan replied. Maeve, myself, and Clarence. My breath stopped. Clarence? He has been with this estate for decades, Jordan said. Long enough to build loyalties we don't fully understand. But he's been kind to me, I whispered. Kindness doesn't preclude secrets, Maeve said gently. My stomach churned. The idea of Clarence, steady, warm, patient, being involved in my father's corruption made my palms sweat. But this wasn't about what I wanted to believe. It was about truth, and truth rarely matched comfort. Maeve leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. Serena, before we continue, we need to ask if you believe you can remain impartial. Your family is now at the center of a federal investigation. You will be asked to make decisions that could affect them. I gripped the armrest to stay grounded. I didn't choose any of this, but I won't compromise the Foundation. Jordan studied me as though weighing every syllable. You understand, she said, that if the Foundation assists investigators, the consequences for your family will be severe. I understand, I said quietly. And if they ask you to testify? Maeve pressed. My throat tightened. I'll tell the truth. The room went still. Finally, Maeve nodded, slow, approving, but also mournful. Then we proceed. Jordan rose. There's something else you need to see. She led us to the media briefing room where staff monitored news cycles. The moment we entered, all conversation halted. Eyes shifted toward the massive wall-mounted screens. Breaking news banners ran across every channel. Alden family bankruptcy, imminent federal raid of corporate offices, employees come forward with testimonies. Community demands justice for housing fraud. My knees weakened. I reached for the back of a chair, steadying myself. One reporter appeared on screen. Sources confirm that financial irregularities extend beyond corporate structures and may involve family-held accounts. Family-held accounts. I felt sick. A woman beside Jordan muted the screen, turning to me with cautious empathy. "This is a crisis, but community impact comes first. You know that." I nodded mechanically, but the words hit a vulnerable part of me, the place that still hoped my family might change, might grow, might admit what they had done. Before I could think more, Maeve touched my arm. "Come with me." She guided me toward her private office at the far end of the hall. When she closed the door behind us, the bustling noise of the foundation vanished. "You are at a crossroads, Serena," she said. "Your heart is divided. You want justice, but you want your family safe." "I don't want them safe from consequences," I said. I never wanted to be the reason their lives collapsed." "You're not," she said firmly. "Their actions built the collapse, not your integrity." Her voice steadied me. Only Maeve could tether me with so few words. Before I could respond, her desk phone buzzed. She answered, listened, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "They're here," she said. "Who?" She exhaled. "Your parents." My breath hitched. "Here? At the foundation." "They're waiting downstairs." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Images of Christmas Eve slammed through my mind. The suitcase, the cold, the door closing behind me while Chloe laughed. Why were they here? I nodded, swallowing the panic building inside me. When we reached the lobby, I froze. My parents stood near the glass doors, but they were nothing like the immaculate people who had thrown me out weeks ago. My mother's hair was unbrushed. Her coat hung unevenly from her shoulders. Her eyes were red-rimmed. My father, once polished, commanding, looked hollow, his jaw unshaven, his posture slumped, his confidence gone. He wasn't the man who had disinherited me. He looked like someone who had already lost everything. He stepped forward. "Serena." His voice cracked. I didn't answer. He swallowed. We need help." My chest tightened painfully. Not because he asked, but because he seemed incapable of saying anything else. My mother grasped my hands. "We didn't know what he was doing," she whispered. "I swear, Serena, I didn't know." But I had seen the letters she wrote, the fear, the warnings. She had known enough. "We're losing the house," she continued. "The accounts are frozen. We have nowhere to go. Please don't let them take everything." My father stared at me, face pale. "You have influence here. Speak to them. Make this go away." I stepped back. "I can't." "You won't," he said sharply, anger flickering through his exhaustion. "I won't obstruct justice," I said quietly. My mother began to sob. My father's face contorted, shame, fury, disbelief twisting together. "This is your revenge," he spat. "You always wanted to ruin us." The words struck me harder than any physical blow. Maeve stepped between us. "Mr. and Mrs. Alden, this conversation is over." But my father wasn't finished. "You'll regret this, Serena," he growled. "Family is blood. Blood remembers." Maeve's eyes hardened. "Security." 2 guards approached. My mother reached for me desperately. "Serena, please." Her voice broke completely as the guards gently guided them toward the doors. I didn't move. Not even when my father shouted my name. Not even when my mother collapsed into tears. Not even when the glass doors closed behind them. The silence afterward was suffocating. I felt hollow, shaking, unable to breathe. Maeve touched my back lightly. "I'm sorry." "I should feel something," I whispered, "but I don't know what I feel." "Shock," she said softly, "and truth. Both are heavy." I nodded weakly. That night, the foundation grew strangely quiet, as though the building were holding its breath with me. I walked the halls alone until I reached the courtyard, a small square of winter roses and stone benches. I sat, pulling my knees close, letting the cold seep through my clothes until my breath formed clouds in the air. I heard footsteps. Jordan sat beside me, not saying a word. We stared at the pale winter sky together. After a long silence, she spoke. The moment a person stops begging for love from those who deny it, that's the moment they begin to heal. I closed my eyes. I don't know how to heal, I said. You don't have to know, she replied. You just have to stop bleeding for people who never tried to stop the wound. A tear slid down my cheek before I could stop it, and for the first time since Christmas Eve, I let myself cry, not for what I lost, but for what I was finally learning to let go. Tomorrow would bring fallout, investigations, consequences, choices, but tonight, for the first time in my life, I wasn't drowning in my family's sins. I was surfacing. The storm hit just after dawn, a hard, rattling rain that clung to the windows of my suite like stubborn ghosts. I stood at the glass, staring at the rippling grounds below, letting the weight of the previous days settle across my shoulders. The world outside Rowan Estate felt distant, blurred by both weather and consequence. Inside, the quiet carried a different kind of heaviness, anticipation, tension, truth pressing against the walls. At 7 sharp, someone knocked on my door. "Miss Alden," Jordan's voice came through, low but firm. "It's time." I opened the door to find her already dressed in tailored black, hair smooth and severe, tablet tucked beneath her arm. She studied my face for a long moment. "Are you ready for today's responsibilities?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm here." She gave the smallest nod approval or acknowledgement, I couldn't tell. "Mrs. Rowan is in the boardroom. She wants you present for the oversight review." My stomach tightened. The oversight review, the biggest internal meeting of the quarter, and today, apparently, I would sit in the room where every decision about funding, fraud protection, and public response was made. "Why me?" I asked as we walked. "Because you need to understand what leadership requires," she said. "And because transparency demands that you witness the fallout of your father's actions." The words stung, even though she spoke them without malice. When we reached the boardroom, the air shifted around us. It wasn't a conference table. It was an arena. 12 board members lined the perimeter, each with folders open, eyes sharp, expressions unreadable. Maeve sat at the head of the table, composed and commanding. Jordan and I took our seats at the side. Maeve looked up. "Let's begin." A senior analyst started the briefing, laying out red-tagged case notes that displayed a timeline of my father's fraud extending over a decade. Each revelation felt like another blow I wasn't prepared for. Misused grants, ghost vendors, laundered funds disguised as community initiatives. And then, the part that made my pulse pound hardest. Slide after slide showing internal document requests, leaked emails, and restricted notes someone had exported from inside the foundation. Someone had fed my father information. Someone here. A ripple of unease crossed the table. Maeve turned toward Jordan. "Status of the internal inquiry?" Jordan tapped her tablet. "We're examining login histories going back 5 years. So far, no anomalies with your profile or mine." "And Clarence?" one board member asked. "We're reviewing his access logs next." Something in the room shifted. A collective holding of breath. I stared at the papers in front of me, the room fading as thoughts tumbled violently. I didn't want Clarence to be involved. He'd been the first person to make me feel welcome here. He'd guided me, reassured me, given me moments of grounding when everything else felt unstable. But truth didn't bend to preference. When the meeting ended, I lingered behind as everyone filed out. Jordan stopped at the door. "You coming?" "In a minute," I said. She nodded, closing the door behind her. Silence wrapped around me. I stared at the empty chair where I'd just sat, replaying the morning. Numbers, signatures, the cold certainty of fraud. But the part I couldn't escape was the image of Clarence's name on the authorized access list in the archives, and the envelope notes. Had he placed them? Did he know something? Or was someone framing him? I pressed my hands to my face, letting the ache pulse through my fingertips. Behind me, footsteps sounded softly. "Maeve." "I know this was difficult to sit through," she said, but you handled it with more composure than many seasoned executives." "That's not how it felt," I murmured. She stepped beside me, her presence steady, grounding. "Your family's collapse is not your failure." "Then why does it feel like it is?" "Because guilt is a habit," she said gently, "one that abusers train into their children so they can stay unseen." My breath caught. "Is that what you think my father did? Make me responsible for his mistakes?" "I think he taught you to absorb blame before anyone asked for it." Her words opened something raw inside me. She rested her hand lightly on my arm. "Come, there is more to do today. You're shadowing me for the afternoon." The next few hours blurred into movement. Site reports, grant evaluations, back-to-back conversations with department heads. Every time I stumbled, Maeve caught me with a question or a nod that told me to keep going. Every time I doubted myself, she pointed out quietly where I'd shown insight, but even her presence couldn't quiet the ache building in my chest. By late afternoon, I needed air. When the brief break came, I slipped outside into the courtyard. The storm had finally softened into a slow drizzle. I walked along the stone path, letting raindrops cling to my hair and shoulders. The roses, though half wilted from winter, held tiny beads of water like jewels. "Miss Alden?" I turned. Clarence stood beneath the archway, holding a black umbrella. He looked older than usual, tired, but his smile was gentle. "You'll freeze," he said, stepping toward me. "Take the umbrella." I hesitated before accepting it. "Thanks." He studied my face. "Hard day?" I let out a shaky breath. "That obvious?" "Only to someone who has seen many difficult days." I nodded, unsure what to say. He continued softly. "Your father's actions have put you in an impossible position, but you're handling yourself with grace." Something twisted in my chest. "Clarence, there's something I need to ask you." His expression flickered. Concern, curiosity, maybe a hint of apprehension. "What is it?" I swallowed hard. "Did you ever share foundation documents with my father?" A long silence. Raindrops flecked his glasses. "Serena," he said gently, "I have worked for Mrs. Rowan for 32 years. I've seen countless families come and go, donors, partners, leaders, but I have never given confidential material to anyone without authorization." Relief washed through me so quickly it almost made me dizzy. "I had to ask," I whispered. "Of course you did." His voice held no defensiveness, only understanding. "And I don't blame you." He paused, then added, "But I believe someone wants you to." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" "Someone is planting seeds, notes, doubt. They want you to question everyone around you." A chill curled down my spine. "Do you know who?" "No," he said, "but I know this. Your father wasn't the only one who benefited from the foundation's collapse. Others gain when trust fractures." His words echoed in my chest long after he left. That evening, as I walked back inside, Jordan intercepted me in the hallway. "Come with me," she said sharply. "Now." She led me to the security office, a tight, windowless room filled with screens displaying camera feeds across the estate. One screen was frozen on a paused frame. "Look at this," she said. On the screen, in grainy black and white, someone stood outside my bedroom door from the night before. The figure wore a hood, dark clothes. Their face was angled away, but their posture, something about it was familiar. They slipped a small envelope under the door, then looked down the hallway, then walked away. I felt my stomach drop. "Can we enhance it?" "We did," she said. "Watch." She pressed play. The figure moved down the hallway, toward the East Wing offices, then paused at the corner, turned their head. For a split second, the camera caught half their face, not enough to identify, just enough to unsettle. "Whoever this is," Jordan said quietly, "they know the blind spots in our camera system. They knew when to move. They knew when night staff switched rotations." "Someone who works here," I whispered. "Yes." Someone who knows me, she didn't respond. Someone who wants me scared, I added. Jordan finally met my eyes. Or someone who wants you distracted. Why would they? To undermine you, to shake you, to make you question whether you belong here. I swallowed hard. But why now? Because, she said, voice low, you're becoming important. The words shook me. Not with fear. With realization. Someone didn't want me stepping into the role Maeve was shaping me for. Someone wanted me uncertain, unstable, easier to push aside. Jordan turned off the monitor. We don't confront shadows, she said. We expose them. How? We wait, she replied. Shadows always move. Eventually they step where the light finds them. But as I walked back to my suite, the hallway felt longer, darker. And for the first time since arriving at Rowan Estate, I understood something chilling. The ghosts here weren't old. They were living, and one of them had me in their sights. The morning of the site visit began before sunrise, the sky still a deep slate blue, the air sharp enough to sting my lungs as I stepped outside. A black SUV idled near the entrance of Rowan Estate, headlights cutting through the mist. Maeve waited beside it, wrapped in a long charcoal coat, her breath visible in soft plumes. Good, she said when she saw me. You're early. Truthfully, I hadn't slept, not after seeing the hooded figure on the security footage, not after realizing someone inside the estate had been watching me closely enough to slip envelopes under my door. My nerves had burned until dawn, but I forced myself to look composed. I'm ready, I said, hoping it sounded true. Jordan slid into the front passenger seat. I took my place in the back beside Maeve, and for a moment, as the doors closed and the estate receded behind us, I felt a flicker of safety, or at least distance. The drive into the city was quiet except for the hum of the engine. I watched fog crawl across the pavement, tall buildings slowly emerging as we crossed the bridge toward Eastwood Community Village, the Foundation's largest housing project to date, and the site of today's progress review. You've been in many meetings, Maeve said softly, but this is your first time seeing the work in motion. In real weather, with real families, under real pressure? I understand. You'll be expected to speak with confidence, not because you have authority yet, but because people look for certainty when their lives depend on it. I nodded, though the words tightened something inside me. As we entered Eastwood, the SUV passed rows of 4-story buildings painted in bright pastels. Children bundled in coats ran between courtyards. Volunteers unloaded crates of winter supplies. A nurse wheeled a portable heater toward a family huddled beneath a tent. It didn't feel like a construction zone. It felt like a fragile city built out of survival. When we stepped out, wind sliced across my face. A woman in a navy beanie hurried toward us, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Rowan, Ms. Hale, welcome. And you must be Serena. Her smile was warm despite the cold. I'm Nina, project coordinator. She led us toward the central building, shouting updates as we walked. 26 units completed, 12 more by next week. Plumbing inspection passed this morning. Food deliveries running behind schedule, but the emergency trucks should be here by noon. Maeve listened without interrupting. Jordan occasionally asked pointed questions, each one slicing through details like a scalpel. And then finally, Nina looked at me. We're struggling with one thing, she said. Some families are refusing transitional housing because rumors are spreading that the funding might collapse. They think the foundation might pull out. My stomach tightened. Where did they hear that? Online mostly, people talking about the Alden investigation, saying our donors are unstable, saying we're next. I froze. Jordan's gaze flicked to me. Maeve's expression did not change, but her hand brushed my arm as if to say, breathe. People fear what they don't understand, Maeve said calmly. Let's dispel the rumor ourselves. We gathered residents and volunteers in the main courtyard, where a portable mic had been set up for outdoor announcements. Snow flurries drifted lightly. Faces turned toward us, tired, hopeful, wary. Maeve took the mic first. I know you're hearing frightening things, she said. Let me be clear. This project is not at risk. The foundation is stable. Your homes are stable. We are here, and we are not leaving. The crowd murmured, but the tension eased. Then she turned to me. Serena, she said, offering the mic. Tell them why we build places like this. My breath snagged. Me? Jordan whispered. Step forward. I forced my feet onto the small platform, my pulse pounding in my ears. 100 faces watched. Families, volunteers, children clutching blankets, people whose lives were hanging on the stability of this project. People who needed hope, real hope, not polished guarantees. The words rose slowly, shaky at first. I know what it feels like to lose your home, I said. Silence washed over the courtyard. I know what it feels like to stand outside in the cold with nothing but a suitcase and fear. A ripple moved through the crowd, some heads nodding, others simply listening harder. I wasn't homeless long, I said, but long enough to understand how easily someone's life can unravel, and long enough to know that rebuilding that life requires more than shelter. Wind brushed my cheeks. A child tugged their mother's sleeve, listening. This place, I gestured around us, isn't just about roofs and walls. It's about dignity. It's about remembering that everyone deserves a chance to begin again, with warmth, with safety, with community. I swallowed the lump in my throat. The rumors you're hearing aren't true. This project is not going anywhere. Neither am I, and neither is the foundation. A stillness hung in the air. Then someone clapped, then another. And suddenly the entire courtyard erupted into applause. Loud, warm, real. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with something startling. Belonging. When the applause faded, Nina touched my arm lightly. That was exactly what they needed, she whispered. Maeve's eyes held a quiet pride. Jordan's expression shifted, barely, but enough to register approval. The rest of the day was spent touring units, checking progress, listening to concerns. Residents approached me with questions. Construction crews asked for clarifications. Volunteers thanked me for the speech. Each moment chipped away at the part of me still shaped by my family's rejection. Leadership didn't feel like authority. It felt like service. By the time we returned to the SUV, exhaustion clung to my bones, but beneath it simmered a fierce determination I hadn't felt before. As the city skyline faded in the distance, Maeve finally spoke. You found your voice today. I didn't know what I'd say until I said it. That's often when truth is loudest, she replied. Jordan glanced back at me. And people listened. The warmth that rose in my chest surprised me, but the moment was short-lived. When we arrived back at Rowan Estate, a black sedan waited near the entrance. Its tinted windows reflected the winter sun like ink. Jordan stiffened. Do you recognize that vehicle? No, I whispered. The sedan door opened. My heart dropped. Chloe stepped out, but she wasn't alone. Behind her, my father, in handcuffs. 2 federal agents escorted him toward the estate. My breath vanished. Chloe rushed toward me, eyes swollen from crying. Serena, please don't let them take him. Step back, one agent ordered. My father's gaze locked onto mine, burning with a mix of shame, fury, and something more desperate. Serena, he rasped, help me. Time slowed. The man who had thrown me out into the snow, the man who blamed me for his crimes, the man who twisted my childhood into shadows. He reached for me with cuffed hands. For the first time in my life, I didn't move toward him. Maeve stepped beside me, her presence steady. This is not your burden, she said softly. But my father's voice cut through the cold air. You think she cares about you? He spat. You're just a tool, Serena, a charity case she can parade around. You'll never belong here. Pain lanced through me, sharp and familiar. But this time, it didn't anchor me. It ignited something. Strength. I met his gaze and spoke clearly, steadily. I belong wherever truth matters. That's why you don't. His face twisted, fury overtaking fear. The agents pulled him toward the sedan. Chloe broke into sobs, collapsing to her knees as they drove away. And I stood still. No shaking, no breaking, just breathing. Maeve touched my arm. You chose integrity today. Again. Jordan nodded slowly, a rare softness in her eyes. You're no longer running from your past, she said. You're confronting it. I exhaled. Snow began to fall, quiet, soft flakes settling across the estate like a promise. For the first time since Christmas Eve, the cold didn't scare me. The news broke before sunrise. Front-page headlines, push alerts buzzing like angry insects across every screen in the Foundation's media room. By the time I arrived downstairs, half the staff was gathered around the monitors, faces pale in the cold glow of the televisions. Alden Heritage Homes. Full-scale, federal probe, expands. Assets frozen, multiple arrests, made community outrage builds as families demand justice. Footage rolled of my father being escorted from a courthouse, his jaw tight, eyes sunken. The caption beneath him read, Key player in housing fraud. Then another headline, Rowan Foundation cooperates with authorities. Project director praises new leadership for transparency. My chest tightened. They meant me. They meant my decisions yesterday. They meant the moment I finally refused to protect him. Serena. Jordan's voice pulled me from the screen. She crossed the room, expression crisp and serious, tablet tucked under one arm. You're needed upstairs, she said. The board wants to speak with you. A jolt of nerves shot through me. The board? Now? Yes, she replied. They want your input before the emergency ruling. Emergency ruling about what? Your family, Jordan said simply, and the investigation's next phase. The words felt cold against my skin. She led me up the staircase to the main conference room. The board members were already seated, their files open, eyes sharp. Maeve sat at the head of the long table, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. The moment I stepped inside, every head turned toward me. Maeve gestured to the seat beside her. Serena, sit. I obeyed, palms pressed against my thighs to keep them from trembling. The chairman, a man with steel-gray hair and a severe voice, began the meeting. We have evidence, he said, that unauthorized access to Foundation archives occurred repeatedly over the past year. Documents were leaked to external parties, including Alden Heritage Homes. His gaze landed on me. And some of those documents pertained to your father's activities. My breath hitched. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. We understand that, he said. This is not an accusation, but your proximity requires transparency. Maeve placed a hand gently on my arm. Serena has been transparent since the day she arrived. A murmur of agreement rippled across the room. The chairman continued. Internal logs show that one of our senior staff members repeatedly accessed files outside their assigned purview. We believe these files were transferred to an external drive. I swallowed hard. Do you know who? He exchanged a grim look with Maeve. We do, she said softly. But we need you to hear it from us directly. The door opened. Clarence was escorted inside. My heart dropped. He looked fragile, older than before, tired, shoulders slumped as if bearing a weight far heavier than age. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. Maeve stood. Clarence, please tell them what you told us. He removed his glasses, rubbing at the bridge of his nose with trembling fingers. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he whispered. I only wanted to help an old friend. My voice cracked. My father? He nodded, eyes filled with regret. He came to me the first time years ago, back when Alden Heritage still had good standing. He said he needed files to complete an audit. I believed him. I thought I was helping a partner organization. And the recent leaks? Jordan asked. He swallowed hard. He told me the Foundation was conspiring against him, that he needed to defend himself, that he was innocent, and I believed him again. The betrayal hit with slow, crushing force. "You slipped notes under my door," I whispered. "Didn't you?" His face crumpled. "No, child. Never. I would never frighten you. I only leaked documents to him. I didn't know he meant to use them to hurt you." My pulse thundered in my ears. "But why didn't you stop? Why didn't you question him?" Clarence looked at me with eyes wet from years of guilt. "Because he said you were in danger, that the Foundation wanted to destroy your family, that if I didn't help him, something terrible would happen to you." A cold silence fell across the room. Maeve inhaled slowly, her expression carved from sorrow rather than anger. "Clarence has submitted his resignation," she said, "effective immediately." He nodded, shoulders shaking. "I'm so sorry, Serena." My throat tightened. I wasn't sure if I wanted to scream, cry, or collapse. "All this time," I whispered, "I thought someone was targeting me, someone inside the house. I thought it might be you." Clarence's face broke entirely. "I would sooner harm myself than you." Maeve stepped forward and placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You have served this estate for 3 decades. Loyalty does not erase wrongdoing, but it does temper how we respond." Clarence's voice cracked. "I never thought he would hurt you." "He didn't," I whispered. "Not this time, but you almost did, by helping him." He bowed his head. "I know." Jordan escorted him out, her posture stiff but respectful. When the door closed, the room felt impossibly heavy. Maeve turned to me with eyes deep and steady. "You've had more truth revealed to you in the last weeks than most people face in a lifetime. How do you feel?" I exhaled shakily. Like everything I thought I understood about my past was built on lies. "Good," she said softly. "Now you can build something real." The meeting shifted to legal matters, project updates, plans for public statements, but all of it passed over me like wind. My mind was still with Clarence in that room, with the warmth of his guiding hand, with the quiet betrayal hidden beneath kindness. I didn't know which hurt more. Later that afternoon, after hours of briefings and statements and calls, I found myself in the grand hallway outside the archives, the very place where Clarence's name had once been engraved on a small brass plaque. Maeve joined me quietly. "Losing trust in someone you admired," she said, "is a particular kind of grief." "I trusted him," I whispered, "more than almost anyone here." "And he cared for you deeply," she replied, "but caring is not the same as protecting." I closed my eyes. "I don't know how to forgive this." "That is because you think forgiveness is release," she said. "It is not. Forgiveness is choosing not to carry someone else's mistakes as your own." The words settled into me like embers. Later, when I returned to my suite, I found another envelope under my door. My breath froze. But this time, when I opened it, there was no threat, no slanted handwriting, no ominous message, just a single, small object. A brass key. Attached to a note in Maeve's steady handwriting, "You are ready for the next door." My pulse quickened. I knew which door she meant. The one I had never been allowed to open. The legacy room. I clutched the key, feeling its weight. Not heavy, not light, but unmistakably significant. The truth wasn't done with me. And now, I wasn't done with it either. The brass key trembled slightly between my fingers as I walked the long corridor toward the archive wing. Every step echoed, soft but certain, as though the house itself acknowledged what this moment meant. For weeks I'd been circling the truth. Now I was walking straight into it. The legacy room waited at the very end of the hall. Tall door, frosted glass, a narrow beam of morning light stretching across the floor like an invitation. Or a warning. I paused, exhaled once, then slid the key into the lock. It turned with a smooth click. Inside, the air felt cooler. Still. Books lined the walls in symmetrical rows. Metal cabinets sat in neat columns. But the room's center held a single oak table, and on that table waited a leather-bound folder etched with gold letters. Rowan Foundation. Succession Prospects. My heart pounded as I approached, the hush of the room amplifying each breath. I opened the cover slowly. My name was on the first page, Serena Alden, Preliminary Evaluation. My throat tightened. Beneath my name sat detailed assessments, leadership notes, crisis response metrics, interpersonal analysis, ethical reasoning, adaptability under pressure. Every observation from the last 6 months, captured with meticulous care. Strengths: integrity under duress, empathy tempered by logic, unwavering moral compass. Challenges: emotional self-blame, residual trauma response, difficulty accepting praise or stability. I swallowed, feeling exposed and seen in equal measure. The next page held something different. A sealed envelope labeled Final Determination. Open only in Maeve Rowan's presence. Before I could reach for it, the door behind me opened. Maeve stepped inside, her cane tapping softly against the stone floor. Her expression was gentle, almost serene, as though she'd been expecting me to arrive at exactly this moment. "I see you found your place in the room," she said. I held up the folder. "This is everything?" "It's the path to everything," she corrected. I hesitated. "And the envelope?" "That," she said, walking closer, "is your crossroads." She placed a hand on the table beside the envelope, not touching it, but claiming the space around it. "For 25 years," she said quietly, "I searched for someone with more heart than ambition, someone who would choose responsibility over comfort, someone who would understand that charity is not saviorhood, but stewardship." She looked directly into my eyes. "Serena, I believe you are that person." Emotions surged in my chest. Fear, disbelief, hope mingled into something almost overwhelming. "Why me? I didn't grow up wealthy. I don't know how to run an empire." "No one is born knowing," she said, "but people are born honest, born compassionate, born resilient. You have what cannot be taught." Her hand brushed the envelope. "If you open this," she said, "your life will no longer be your own. The foundation will be your legacy, your responsibility, your burden, your triumph. And if I don't open it, then you will still have a place here, a meaningful place, but not as my successor." Silence settled again, thick with possibility. My gaze drifted around the room, the cabinets filled with decades of service, the books recording a lifetime of impact, the table where countless decisions had shaped thousands of lives. I thought of the women in shelters, the families in transitional homes, the children in after-school programs. I thought of the girl I once was, sitting on a snow-covered bench with no home, no coat, no future. And then I thought of what I felt at the Eastwood site visit, the moment I spoke to a courtyard full of frightened families and saw their fear ease because someone had believed in them. "I want this," I whispered. Maeve smiled, small, proud, and edged with relief. "Then open it." My fingers gripped the seal. I tore it slowly, the sound impossibly loud. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper. Appointment of successor. Effective upon the retirement or death of Maeve Rowan, stewardship of the Rowan Foundation shall transfer fully to Serena Alden. My breath caught. The words blurred slightly as tears built behind my eyes. "You chose me," I whispered. "No," Maeve said softly. "You chose yourself. I merely recognized it." She reached out her hand. I took it. Her grip was warm and steady. "You will build rivers," she said. "Not bridges. Rivers sustain. They nourish. They endure." A tear slipped down my cheek. "I won't fail you." "You won't fail them," she corrected gently. The next weeks were a whirlwind. Legal confirmations, public announcements, donor receptions, internal restructuring. Chloe vanished from social media. My mother sent me a long apology letter I wasn't ready to open. My father pleaded not guilty in court, though evidence mounted against him with each passing day. But for the first time, none of their choices defined mine. By spring, I'd fully stepped into my new role. The day the press gathered for the announcement ceremony, the sky above the Foundation's headquarters was a soft, hopeful gold, like dawn extended just for us. Rows of journalists filled the courtyard. Staff lined the balcony railings. Partners from across the country arrived in sleek black cars. Maeve stood beside me on the stage, elegant in ivory, her smile serene but unmistakably proud. She spoke first, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Leadership is not inherited," she said. "Leadership is chosen. And today, I have chosen a successor who understands the heart of our mission better than anyone I have ever met." She turned to me. "Serena, take your place." My hands trembled as I stepped to the podium. Flashbulbs burst like stars. The cluster of microphones rose toward me. Hundreds of eyes waited. For once, I didn't shrink. "1 year ago," I began, "I had nowhere to go. I thought my worth had been decided by people who failed to see me. But the truth is this: no one can decide your worth except you." Silence fell, complete, reverent. This foundation exists for people who have been told they don't belong, for people who need a home, not just a house, for people who have been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. The air warmed with applause, not loud yet, but building. I stand here today because someone chose to see potential instead of failure, and I promise to do the same for every person who steps through our doors. When the speech ended, the applause surged into a wave, washing over me like light. Someone handed me a bouquet. Someone else hugged me. Reporters shouted questions I didn't hear. All I could see was Maeve's proud, teary smile. Hours later, after the crowds dispersed, I slipped away to the quiet courtyard behind the building, the place where families gathered on weekends, where we held candlelight vigils for lost lives and celebrations for new beginnings. A little boy with mismatched gloves tugged at my sleeve. "Are you the new boss?" he asked. I knelt so we were eye level. "Something like that." He handed me a small dandelion, its petals bright despite the cool spring air. "For luck," he said. I smiled, truly smiled. "Thank you." He ran back to his mother, who waved at me with gratitude so pure it tightened my chest. This, I realized, was my home now. Not because of the power, not because of the title, but because I finally understood. Belonging isn't given, it's built, brick by brick, choice by choice, truth by truth. As I stood and watched families move through the courtyard, laughter echoing against the stone walls, I felt something shift inside me, a sense of completion, of reclamation, of quiet triumph. I had not just survived, I had risen. And I wasn't done rising. If you've ever fought your way through a storm you didn't deserve, if you've ever rebuilt yourself from pieces someone else shattered, tell me your story in the comments. And if you want more journeys of resilience, justice, and unexpected redemption, make sure you like this story and subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Your voice matters here. We rise together.